Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host, back with the second of the double header, August 4th, Tim Travels. What's up, BB? So, I wanted to mention something. This doesn't have anything to do with the 4th of August, but probably one of my favorite NFL players ever, Steve Mongo McMichael, is on the finalist list for election to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's on the senior list. He's one of 12 finalists, and up to 3 can be chosen, and that will come out on August 22nd. Unfortunately, Steve, who if you ever watch the guy play, I mean, never a guy played harder, and he's just a funny dude. I just have great memories of watching him and Mark Giangreco on WMAQ Channel 5 here in Chicago back in the day. It was just hilarious. And every once in a while, Steve would get, like, after an away game, he would have been drinking on the plane on the way back, and it was good TV, man. It was like this kind of, wild man, doing his assessment of football. It was a lot of fun. But, he's been suffering with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and he's gone to the hospital today with some medical issue where he's had to go into the ICU. He is, if you've paid any attention at all, he's in kind of like the, I don't know if they call it end stage, but right now he's on a ventilator. He can't talk and stuff. But I just wanted to give him a shout out and just say I hope I hope he gets to hear he's there when they knock on the door to tell him he's been elected to the Hall of Fame. And by the way, I heard somebody say it, and I have no doubt it's true. All 12 of the finalists are really highly qualified to be enshrined at Canton. But make no mistake about it. If Steve McMichael is one of those people elected, it's not because it's a sympathy vote. This dude has the numbers. When you look at defensive tackles, especially in a 4-3 scheme, his quarterback sack numbers are right up towards the very top. I think that even though individuals are elected to the Hall of Fame, here's a guy who played in between 2 defensive ends who are both in the Hall of Fame, and I would say a large part of that is because of his play, and also Refrigerator Perry, William Perry. But anyway, I just share that with you. Best wishes to Steve and his family, and I'm just praying for him to at least get as back to as good as he can be, and I hope that he gets to hear his own name called. So I'll just say that. Couple of other things on August 4th, though. Today was the day that Britain entered World War I in 1914 after the Germans had invaded Belgium. So it was kind of the war itself developed a little slower than in 1941 when the United States was attacked and stuff. Of course, Britain was already in World War II by then, as was most everybody else except for the U.S. And of course, the United States didn't get into World War I until 1917, so the year before the war ended. The other thing that happened today, I want to give a shout out, a happy birthday to my seagoing colleagues in the United States Coast Guard. Semper Paratus to all you guys. This day in 1790, the Secretary of the Treasury, who was a guy named Alexander Hamilton, he set up what was called the Revenue Marine I don't know if it was agency, but basically he set up the organization that would become the U.S. Coast Guard. But you can tell by the title, right? It was like there were these things called, like revenue cutters, and people would try to smuggle stuff in without paying duties and stuff like that. And so he was like, hey, look, we're this fledgling democracy, and Hamilton was a big fan of federalism and assumption of the debt that had been incurred to fight the Revolutionary War, and so he wanted a strong federal government, wanted control of the purse, etc. So one of the things was to make sure that people were paying import duties and there weren't people smuggling stuff in. So that was the Coast Guard's original function. And I've spoken about the Coast Guard. I mean, there's a lot of jokes, you got to be 6 feet tall to be in the Coast Guard, because then if your ship sinks, you can walk to shore. But I have mad respect for the Coast Guard and what they are able to accomplish, being a part of Department of Homeland Security. They kind of get just, I know they're not a defense, they're not a armed force, but they are, and they get the short end of the stick because of their origins, but they have a super important job and they're really good at it. So anyway, that's that. I wanted to talk about training. I talked to a driver today who is training, and let me let me preface this by saying that I am not questioning anybody's desire or active participation as a trainer, and I'm talking about TNT here. I'm not questioning anybody's decision making, and I also am not anti-trainee at all. People come, they want to get trained, etc. But here's the rub, if you will, and this is just my observation. And again, I don't know that there's anybody to blame for what the situation is, for lack of a better term. I do think there are some things that could mitigate what's going on, but I don't know all the decision making that went into it. But let me say this. So I talked to this driver, and they said their trainee made, I think they said $1,050 for the week. And then once they paid the taxes, all in, their cost of employing that trainee on their truck for 1 week was about $1,400. And they only, after all the bills were paid, they netted about $1,550, which once they pay their taxes means that they're probably truly netting something less than it costs them to have a trainee on the truck for the week. And they questioned whether or not that makes sense for them to keep this trainee. And and I don't want to answer that question for them, because there are different reasons to train and to keep a trainee. But I think there seems to be this perfect storm, right? Like, you got the trainer kind of in the middle, and then you got the trainee on one side, and you got prime on the other. And this may be true at other companies, I don't know. But I feel like prime pays premium wages to trainees. I really feel like that's a thing. I cannot, like, for instance, I was talking to somebody and I said, oh, well, when I was at night, I was getting $500 a week to be a trainee. And they said they were training at Prime at the very same time. They were getting $700 a week. In other words, they were getting 40% more training at Prime than I was training at night. Okay, 40% more. So, so I think Prime has always been at the top of the pay scale, you know, and for trainees. And so, you know, with this increase in training pay, which I think is part of some kind of litigation avoidance strategy, or, you know, maybe even they had a settlement and, you know, that's the reason for it. Oh, there's another train coming. By the way, this secret train watching spot there's been a bonus. So this is the BNSF main line, but there's a Norfolk Southern line that crosses here, and I could tell here, I'll show you this train because I missed the last time. Okay, so there's a Norfolk Southern line that crosses here, and I could tell the fire department's on the other side of these tracks. And when a Norfolk Southern fuel train came through a little bit, all tankers, and the firefighter guys who were hanging out at the fire station, they like went out to watch that train go by. I guess maybe it's a rare occurrence, but they had the green light, and so they crossed over these BNSF tracks. But this is the BNSF line that goes, well, I mean, theoretically it goes all the way to the West Coast and it goes into Chicago, but more directly it goes to Kansas City. But anyway, getting back to the trainee situation, you know, it seems to me like there's a compelling reason to not train, not do TNT right now. And the reason I say that is this: if your trainee who has essentially, you know, like if they haven't been on somebody else's truck, when they get on your truck, they basically have zero over-the-road experience, right? And, you know, they drove around the block a few times in PSD training, and for their test, they backed in between some cones. And I could tell you that you know, you might have a CDL, but that's all you got, right? Because I watched a guy today at the place I delivered. You know, the unfortunate thing was he was from Prime. I have no idea what he was thinking about, and even the other Prime drivers that were there were like, "What is that dude doing?" But yeah, it was like I got nothing. It was the weirdest. Like, it was a little bit tight, but all you had to do was like back in or turn around. But he like, and again, I apologize for the digression here, but he like slid his tandems before he started maneuvering around this fairly tight yard. And I was like, and then, you know, like the truck was not new, and it was an owned truck, if you know what I mean. But I don't know that he wasn't driving for somebody else. Anyway, so, you know, you put somebody on your truck and you're experienced, and, you know, whatever that level is, it really is tough to say, I'm going to put somebody on my truck who has basically zero experience, who I have to teach almost everything to, or I should be, and they're making, for all intents and purposes in the example I gave, more than I am in a given week. Now, I will say that over time, you know, you would expect that the truck would net a lot more than what the trainee is getting paid. But if that doesn't happen, and here's the problem, right? We have this, I said we had this perfect storm, right? So like you got the trainer, he's in his boat here, right? But he's getting hit with wind and wave action from one side, which is the amount of money that he has to cough up just to have a trainee on the truck, right? Regardless of the revenue he's making, he's still getting pushed by this wave, these waves and this wind, right? And on the other side, he's got Prime, and Prime is pushing because they're mandating what the trainee gets, but they also control, in a way, control the revenue stream. And here, and I'm not saying, you know, if the car goes there, the car goes there. If it's not, it's not, right? But when Prime says, oh, hey man, take this trainee on your truck, well, to me, the quid pro quo has always been, okay, well, if I'm putting a trainee on the truck and I want to run as a team, let's say I want to do super singles, super solos for a week or two, but then I want to run as a team. If you don't have team loads, that's a problem. And then if you don't have team loads and you also do not have the ability to stack solo loads, and what I mean by stacking solo loads is before you even deliver the one load, you already know where you're going and you're getting the next one. Like, here's an example. I mentioned in my earlier video, I was done at the shipper, or excuse me, at the receiver at 0810, right? But now, I didn't get a pre-plan for about an hour after that, but then the pre-plan has this enormous window, and it's at Tyson, right? And I'm not blaming anybody, but the fact of the matter is that I'm sitting right now. It's not bugging me a lot because I'm not paying Beatrice to be on the truck. I'm not paying my daughter to be on the truck. And I'm kind of hanging out watching the trains go by and drinking Diet Coke. So, you know, it's not a bad day, right? But if I had somebody on the truck that, you know, the minimum I'm paying them is $128 a day, and I got to wait 12 hours to get this load, and by the way, this load pays pretty good. It's a 2-stop load, but it's 1 stop in Maryland, 1 stop in PA. It pays pretty good. But if those loads aren't like coming quickly, right? Because I even had this problem back when I had Paul on the truck, and I started to notice that we were getting loads, but then we'd be waiting, like we'd sit for like 10 hours between loads. Not because we wanted to sit, but because it was just, we couldn't pick up. And I finally said something, and I went actually over my fleet manager's head, and I'm like, this is not going to work. This is not how this is supposed to work. So, you know, and I'm wondering if when you're being buffeted by these waters from both sides of the boat, and you couple that with the fact that what you're doing is you're training somebody to add more capacity at a time when it's beneficial to people that drive trucks to have less capacity. Like it feels, you know, it's you know, one of the things that makes people crazy in the working world is when they literally are asked or told to train somebody that's gonna take their job and at a lower, you know, pay amount. It's crazy, but it happens. And you know, so that's the question, right? Are we, you know, if we're training and we're not, you know, we're, you know, sort of kind of losing money to do it, and we're training somebody who is going to dilute the gene pool, right? They're going to add capacity, which means there are less opportunities for every other person that's already out in the fleet. Are we just like cutting our own throats here? And I don't have, you know, I just want to ask the question. I just want to ask the question, because for some people, like, you know, Jim C, she watches videos. He, other than the fact that he, you know, he had like a double like a deer and a moron, you know, damage his truck. You know, I feel like he might be doing a little better than this other person I'm talking about. And 1 week does not a trend make. I agree with that. But, you know, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are having too many of those weeks where it's like, what did I do this for this week? You know, and you have to judge it, you know, you have to judge it over a period of time. I do know that this person that I'm talking about is the person that's training with him is an orphan. I don't think she I don't think that the trainee had any issues. I just think for whatever reason they couldn't finish with the trainer they had, which could be money. You know, a lot of us won't say, oh, you know, I'm doing it, I'm quitting because the money's not there. But you know, it's okay to say that, right? Like I think that I think that Prime needs to hear that. I think they picked a really bad time to increase training wages, and you know, and candidly, you know, it's kind of funny because there's this woman who is called 1 billionth content creator. She's on YouTube, and she left Prime because she wasn't getting miles. Now, you know, she had some great ideas in a video that she just did about, you know, about deconflicting the training stuff, where she said, hey, just because a trainer wants to take vacation, especially in the summer, why is the trainer on the hook to pay the trainee? Why doesn't, you know, like if I had a trainee and I was like, yeah, I'm going home for a few days, I'm paying somebody who's doing nothing, right? You know, and theoretically, right, like if this was any other business, I would, you know, like when I had my law firm, I would tell my partner, I would tell the other attorneys, I would tell my office, you know, I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna be on vacation these days. But I didn't have to pay them to sit at home while I was on vacation. They just worked, right? Everybody took vacation when they took vacation, you know. But it's just, I don't know, it's kind of weird. I'm interested in comments, and I would especially, I'm very interested because I even thought about calling some recruiters. I'm interested in what other trucking companies are paying similarly situated trainees right now. So, you know, if you're a trainer at another company, I'm interested in what your CDL holder trainees are getting paid and how they're getting paid. Now, I know if you're a company driver, it's your company that's paying them, but what are they getting? That's what I'm interested in knowing. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.